Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to another one of these lovely little talking with the community streams. Today, it is 7:30 p.m. CST on the 22nd of August of 2021, and me and Playful are talking about some magic plants. Howdy, Playful. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Not too bad either. So, the first crazy magic plant we're talking about is from one of my favorite movies, Little Shop of Horrors. The plant is named Audrey 2, because the person it's named after is named Audrey. And so it is sort of a poetic love token to name the plant after his beloved, the person who's tending it. And Audrey 2, it's cute. Audrey 2 has some of the best puppeteering and some of the best lines that a plant has ever had. It's the plant that has the most personality in any movie. And if you haven't seen Little Shop of Horrors, I really recommend it. It's a fantastic movie. But if you like happy endings, don't watch the director's cut because the ending is crazy and it's not really happy. Uh, Maybe it is the ending that happens eventually, but at least in like the theatrical version, it is saved off for a little bit, so the two main characters can be happy for a little while. Sorry, I've got something in my throat.
Fine.
All right, sorry about that. But yeah, Little Shop is a great movie, and if you have any interest in practical effects and music, it's a fantastic musical. Some of my favorite songs. So, what was one of yours?
I didn't really have a movie sort of thing that did all these kind of plants.
Surely there was one that you thought had a cool name, though.
True. And it was the Venus flytrap.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I've always been a little afraid of those. Have you seen one in person?
I have not, but I have seen them on movies and stuff, and it's like, whoa, holy, that kind of thing. Just the fact that they can shut themselves that quick. That's actually quite amazing.
It is, and of course, they're what look like teeth, the claws that they have, whatever you want to call them. They're not sharp.
They're
They are
not really.
no, they're not sharp or anything. They're just there to close the net so that their prey can't escape.
Yeah,
But
true.
they're a lot like, I believe they're called uh, pitcher plants. Pitcher plants are a little more devious in that they can trick creatures like flies into thinking that there's honey or sap or sugar inside of them, and they just sort of fall in, and then
Yeah.
they get their meal. I think Venus flytraps, though, have a much more daunting expression of danger because they can just kind of close up on you. And I've always worried about putting my hand near one. But they are in nature, and they're some of the craziest looking plants because they're just huge. They're huge by comparison to other plants, and they have these like gigantic jaws, and they seem so ostentatious almost. But they're one of the most interesting plants that's ever existed because literally, I mean, they're a carnivorous plant, and it's just, you don't see that almost anywhere else.
No, you don't. Sure.
It's very strange. But I suppose it had to happen somewhere. So the next plant that I'd like to talk about is the wonderful mandrake plant from the Harry Potter movies. I think this one specifically is the second movie in the Chamber of Secrets. Now, Playful, I know you haven't seen very many fantasy movies. You haven't seen Harry Potter, have you? Have we talked about that?
I watched none of the series of that.
We have to get you caught up on those someday. So, the mandrake plant is, in the movies, it's actually really cute. Now, a mandrake, do you know what that is? Have you heard of that fiction before?
I think so, but I cannot remember.
Let me educate you about it then. More than happy to. Mandrakes are tubers that look like babies when they're young. Their screams can incapacitate and be fatal to a fully grown adult. A potion made from mature mandrakes can restore victims who have been petrified. A different kind of mandrake is a real plant, of course, but these ones are kind of like, if you can imagine a really loudly screaming baby, so high
Yeah.
pitched that you kind of like, you can't even hear yourself think, like a really loud whistle almost. Uh,
Oh, those hurt for sure.
it's very painful from what it seems like.
Yeah.
And they're actually really really cute puppets in the movie. Like they get put into soil and soil gets placed on them, and they're just really cute. I like them a lot. I like to think that their butts are safe in the soil, of all the things. But
Yeah.
I really like those particular ones are cool. It's also in the game Haunting Grounds, which I think we can talk very little about on the stream because it's not a PG game whatsoever. But they're also known in that game to have like sanity reducing effects when you hear them, like they drive you crazy.
Yeah. Very true.
Crazy baby plant. So then we have the. Do you know what Yggdrasil is?
Nope.
In Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is the world tree. So this actually plays a prominent role in the game God of War, the newest one.
Kind of like, kind of sort of like the tree of life.
I think it's very similar. I'm not certain which of those came first, but it's one of those synchronicitous things where maybe it's like a chicken and egg situation. It's not really clear which one came first. But
Yeah, exactly.
if
But
nothing else, go
it's
ahead.
the same sense, though. It's like the tree of life, kind of, sort of.
The Yggdrasil is sort of like the Force. It has its roots and branches that sort of go into everything. They are
Yeah.
spread to all the dimensions, to all the people, all the creatures, and it's all connected. The dimensional travel that you can do in God of War, I think, is a kind of anachronistic, kind of like that isn't really said in any of the lore, but it is cool because you have this big old thing that you turn, this Diaz, and whenever you turn it to, you can go to that realm, fast travel
Hmm.
essentially, and I like that. I think it's a great addition. It is definitely more like sci-fi Nord stuff, if you know what I mean, when like they add sci-fi into old cultures.
Oh, totally, yeah.
It is definitely like that, and a lot of it, especially when it comes to this particular subject of trees, trees like the Whomping Willow in Harry Potter. There's this big tree that is malicious. It's pretty mean. It actually seems to be able to harm people pretty badly, and it seems to want to drive them away too, because there's a secret underneath it. But the tree is called the Whomping Willow, and it is a leafless. Actually, it does have leaves at one point. Tree that can bend and shift and attack with its branches, and it plays a semi-crucial role. I mean, it does show up. It can club people with branches. It's very hostile, and there is a haunted house very close by. But yeah, the Whomping Willow, the name is really cool. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, it just kind of rolls off the tongue. It's very nice to say. And here's another good one. And, as you said, the Tree of Life, which is the ancestor of yams. What does that mean? Oh, literally, it is the ancestor of the vegetable yams, which I recently watched a Let's Play of We Happy Few, and there is a great sub quest or side quest called I Am What I Am, and it is about a mythical deity that takes the form of a yam, the golden yam. And whenever you acquire the golden yam, you will start seeing yams in everything that you search through. And whenever you see one of those yams in there, I'm always like, the yam is with us, you know? The yam is
Yep.
there. And I've always taken that as a great sign. That's a very fun game, though. It has quite a bit of DLC to it, too. But yeah, the Tree of Life, it's kind of like uh, it's another one of those things where I don't actually know if this is kind of a Wiccan thing or if this is it takes place in some books in Destroyer of Worlds and in Ring World and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that it is also in other things besides this. I don't know if this is the first incarnation of it, but I've heard of the Tree of Life from other situations too. So it's like you said, I'm not sure. It's probably Yggdrasil that came first, if I'm being honest with you, because Norse mythology is pretty old.
True. Very true.
I don't know for sure though, so don't quote me. Let's see. Another one of these is the fungus people, which are kind of plants. You know what I mean? They're kind of
Hmm.
plants. They're called myconids, the fungus men. So I have never encountered anything close to a fungus man in all of my time playing D&D, but I like to think that they're kind of slow and waddling, and maybe they trundle around. And I like to think that they're very peaceful besides their nature for making things decompose, which, I mean, you think that's what they would want to do. They want to make things decompose by sitting on them for a while.
You
I
would
think
think.
it's cute though, right? Mushroom people sound cute, don't they?
Just a little.
I like to think they have tiny little beady eyes, or like a sort of slit kind of eyes underneath their mushroom cap, and they have to like look around by turning their whole body, which I think is also really cute. It's like Batman, who can't actually look in other directions without turning his head, and like turning his whole upper body to do it.
Yeah.
The old suits they put like Adam West in, like he could not turn his head completely without
Yeah, his whole body had to
without it.
move.
Yeah, his whole body moving. I always liked that.
I used to watch that back in the day. The old Adam West.
Yeah, I used to love
Good show.
the movie. My parents must have watched that with me a million times. I've always loved. You can't get some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. One of my favorite lines in movies. And I really like the shark repellent spray, but I won't talk about that for a whole lot of time. It's just very reminiscent. My grandpa and I used to watch that together
Yeah.
too. And certainly fungus people, I can imagine that they have a interesting culture being completely surrounded by the idea of decomposition and not really being in the light very much, and being not tubers, but like they're pretty unique. Certainly playing as a fungus man sounds like it would be very unusual. I'm not sure how you would how you would relate to that. I've never played as a plant ever, and I've never played as a fungus especially. But if I could imagine playing as a fungus, I would have to imagine that you are like very slow talking and slow moving, and maybe you're only interested in like I don't know what I can't relate to a fungus. I can't get in the mindset of a fungus. It's very difficult for me because I can't even imagine what they would think of.
Yeah, me either.
But we have another one too, a tree ant. You know what a tree ant is?
Ants that are living in trees.
That's a good one. A tree ant.
Well, it makes sense.
So a tree ant is a living tree.
Oh, oops.
No, I understand why you'd say that because the name literally is tree ant. But tree ants are they are in uh, Middle Earth, and they are in D&D. So in this case, tree ants are basically very slow moving, very slow thinking, very slow to action kind of creatures. They don't really do much of anything besides guide other trees to settle down in places with fertile soil, which is very strange that they can like get the other trees to settle down somewhere else. Called tree herders, they actually do. They're kind of like shepherds, where they help the trees go to a new location when they need to move the forest. Which, I mean, I don't know when they get time to do that, being giant trees, but there's also female ants, which, imagining how tree creatures reproduce, I have to imagine that's like as slow as it gets. I mean, it'd probably take like decades for anything to happen, and then like they just make a sapling. I don't know, sapling creature. I don't want to think about it too much, of course, because of the stream being PG, but certainly,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's also a difficult role to get into because being a tree, I'm not sure what much motivation is, but when it comes to things like that, they seem to be fairly neutral good. They seem to be really interested in keeping their tree grove safe and having communication with the other trees and maybe elves too. I think elves and treants and mushroom people get along really well, right? Because elves are very
Yeah.
like of the forest. They're very connected to nature, so I think they get along really well. But it's always kind of like goblins and orcs do not get along well with trees and stuff like that. You can imagine being as sort of evil and industrial as goblins and orcs are, that they have problems with trees because they're kind of the opposite of what they care about. They care about basically becoming the strongest and having the strongest weapons, whereas trees are just wood. They just fight with wood. They are very weak to fire, and they probably have like sap for blood. Imagine having sap for blood or maple syrup.
That, that would be weird, but that would be also kind of cool too.
Yeah, I wonder like treant syrup, a maple treant. If you could give up some of your maple syrup, your magical maple blood, and you could like make someone get healed, that would be very noble to have a magical treant that gives up its maple syrup. It's literally the giving tree.
Yeah.
I've never read that book, but I've heard sad things about it. As far as plant creatures go, I think my favorite plant creature is still Audrey 2, but another good one is okay. So there's this game called Caves of Quid. I might have mentioned it before. It's a very fun, very uh, mentally stimulating, and very well written game that has to do with exploring this realm, which is completely destroyed by a sort of like a world-ending event that made everything turn into chrome. And in Caves of Qud, you are searching for the Caves of Qud, which contain the ancient mysteries of what happened to the planet, along with some of the most powerful technology of all time, from the planet's ancient and destroyed, destroyed societies, destroyed cultures. But you know, it's like post-apocalyptic in a way. But one of the characters you can play as, one of the races you can play as, is tree people. But they're not really tree. They're more like a shrub people, generic like vine people. You know what I mean? They're not really like actual trees. They're about human sized. Groot. Groot is a really good example of the tree people from this. Do you know Groot?
I forget what movie he was from, but yes, I remember that.
He is a big old Guardians of the Galaxy character, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, there's Baby Groot too, which I think is cool. I'm not sure which I prefer, but they're all cool. I imagine that Groot is about as close to this sort of character as you can get. They're not. I mean, he's kind of a tree. I think these are kind of closer to vines that are sort of
Yeah.
amorphous and shaped into humanoids, but certainly they are interesting plants. They're another one of those made from and existing in the same universe as treants, but they're like a lesser treant in a way, but equally just as interesting in that they have maybe strange motivations for doing things. I wonder if they sleep in pots, right, with dirt on them. That's what I would do.
That would be cool.
Sleeping in the soil. Okay, so they're like vampires. They can only sleep in the soil of their native land. You ever heard that?
No, I did not.
There's this, I mean, vampire mythology is a giant mess. I mean, you could say anything works for anything, right? Because there's so much of it. But there is a mythology that is based in, I don't know what setting, but the setting says that vampires can only sleep if they are in their coffin, and the coffin is either filled with or on top of or buried in soil from their native land, like the place they were buried to begin with. I think this takes place in Bram Stoker's Dracula as well. I don't know if that's the only one it was set in, but I know it comes from there, at least from the first time I've heard of it. And that'd be cool if you had to like be sleeping in a pot, a big pot, like a bathtub basically, of the soil that you were originally potted in. Oh, that's cute. I'm gonna have to remember that. I thought about playing a plant character. I'm not sure if they're called plantoids. It sounds offensive though, doesn't it?
Sounds a little weird.
A little weird plantoid. But yeah, I'm totally into the idea. I would need to really think about how to get into character for that, but you can make it work if you really bend your mind a little bit.
Hmm.
So, our next plant that we're going to talk about, Poison Ivy. So, Poison Ivy is a DC character who may be one of the most like iconically eroticized characters I can think of in DC. And
Hmm.
not only that, but I mean, it's kind of impossible to avoid things like male gaze with this character because of how much they make themselves into an icon of arousal and lust. They, I think, are very often portrayed as being in control of these feelings and sort of a manipulator because of them, which of course doesn't work on Batman, except for in that one movie where him and Robin got into a fight over her. But
Yeah, that was a little weird, but whatever.
the Bat credit card came out then. I can't believe they put that in the movie, but whatever. Yeah, it's not my decision. Someone made that decision,
No.
and it was not mine. I, I was only like maybe no, I might have actually not been born when that movie came out, but someone thought it was a good idea. So Poison Ivy,
Okay.
yeah, I know. Poison Ivy was played by Uma Thurman, and she's been voice acted by multiple people in most of the Batman Arkham video games, which I think are pretty diverse in the kinds of appeal they can have. Certainly, Arkham, I've played some of them, and some of them are really fun. They have really pretty effects in some of them too, particles and stuff. But Poison Ivy is a little bit too uh, scantily clad for my taste, which is a female empowerment thing, of course, if that is
Hmm.
the angle you want to look at it from. But at the same time, she has control over plants. I don't know if it's every plant, but she can make plants manifest and make them grow faster. She can also use them to like to grab people and throttle them and stuff. And she can also make poisonous flowers. And I think she could probably make like a really deadly Venus flytrap that could actually bite people. That's my guess though. But she's got green skin and actually has like ivy slash vines growing across her body, which is usually a way to determine like a bra or underwear for her, because
Yeah.
I imagine like that's about as natural as you can get in any sort
For
of
getting too professionally clad for movies. Yeah.
yeah, that's about as natural as you can get. And what's funny is in the video games, the first time you see her, she's wearing like a full sleeves rolled up suit shirt. Like I'm not certain if it's supposed to be a man or woman's suit shirt, but it's nice. It's actually very pretty. It's like red, and it counters with the green of her skin and her big old red hair. And then she's wearing like I don't know, probably kind of lingerie-ish underwear. But then, as time goes on, the suit shirt turns into like a almost a tube top, and I don't know when it happens, but they make her more and more uh, personifying this
Yeah.
very, very eroticized character, extremely eroticized.
Yeah.
I think there's room in my heart for a character like that. I just don't know if it's Poison Ivy.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm into the idea of having plant powers. I think that if I could be like a plant father who had like a green thumb, like a crazy green thumb that could make anything grow, I would try to use my powers for good to make like we were just talking about plants yesterday. The amaranthum. I would make amaranthum with my plant powers.
Nice.
I would grow crops for the needy. Certainly that would be a great way to put your skills to the test. I think as well, definitely I'm interested in this culture of crazy plants. Another good crazy plant, and I'm glad I went onto the subject of plant people, because there is let's see where it is. There is what's called a shambling mound. So a shambling mound in D&D is a kind of creature that not only is it big and tough, but it has like a very swamp vibe to it, like a swamp monster. And it is able to incorporate other creatures into itself. And it's kind of like keeping them alive in a way and using them to improve its muscles and stuff. And it's a very hard thing to fight. There's a fight with, I believe it's a shambler in the heck house, the haunted house, in the one of the very first dungeons in the Curse of Strahd, which the Curse of Strahd is a very difficult campaign setting. I have failed it before. I was with a group that failed the Curse of Strahd haunted house, and it is tough. It's really tough. Definitely, Curse of Strahd is one of those games that you don't want to. You want to consider before you go in there with a pre-made character, because it'll wreck you. It does not pull punches. Same with Tyranny of Dragons. But I think that's a discussion for a different day. Shambling mounds, though, are kind of like an amalgamation of mud and a very much vine men as well, but they're completely evil. They're evil, and they have only one intention, which is assimilating more creatures into them, and they're pretty scary. Pretty scary. That's on the side of not good creatures. And okay, there's another bad one is the yellow musk creeper. So the yellow musk creeper is I don't remember exactly how it does this, but I believe it has fumes that if you smell them, then the fumes, which are basically like magical spores, start to drain and sap your life. And if they drain your life completely, you become a zombie. And in D&D, zombies are pretty common as far as enemies go. They're difficult to put down completely because you have to. They have a thing called a Constitution roll they can make if they receive enough damage. They don't even get to make it, but if they aren't brought down properly, then they can keep saving Constitution and they don't actually become destroyed. They just go back to 1 health point. Meaning you can have a pretty extended fight with them if you're not careful. And I don't know if yellow musk zombies are worse than normal ones. Let me check that. If I had to guess, they're probably about the same. It's a little bit of hypnosis almost, a little bit of like mind control.
Yeah. There's actually another plan out there. I do not know what the heck it's called, but it kind of basically puts you to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it, but it's the kind of plant that shoots some kind of perfume, and then you get put to sleep.
Huh.
Either permanently or only for a little bit if something wakes you up.
So definitely plants that have like a this is actually a thing in Batman and Robin too. The poisonous flowers I was talking about. There's pods that Poison Ivy makes that shoot hallucinogenic stuff into people's faces, and I'm sure sleeping is one of those types of things, because hallucinogens, plants are a psilocybin, I think it's called, is a very still little understood type of hallucinogen, but I think the idea of plants that make you fall asleep, plants that make you enter into like an LSD state or a altered consciousness state, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the movie The Wizard of Oz?
I have, actually.
Those plants is what I'm talking about.
Oh, which ones are those?
When they came into a field full of plants, and then the bad witch kind of cast a spell?
Your memory of Wizard of Oz is probably greater than mine, but I do believe you. If you can continue talking about it, I might have my memory jogged.
But they have like a field of, I don't know the exact plants.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The
Because of the witch
you're talking about
casting that spell,
the
they
poppies.
got put to sleep. And it was only, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. And it was only because of Glenda, the good witch, that they finally woke up.
Yeah, those are poppies in the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, oops.
No, it's okay. Poppies are completely okay to discuss. In the Wizard of Oz,
But I was thinking of the wrong plant.
no, it's all right.
They didn't look like poppies to me.
In the Wizard of Oz, poppies are a. I think they're called deadly poppies, which I don't know if they're only that way
I don't know either.
in the Land of Oz, but they're called that, the deadly poppies, and they are pretty. I've always thought that poppies were pretty, but I I'm not
Yeah,
actually
same here.
I'm not growing those outside of my window just yet. I have a bunch of stuff growing, and you know what, Playful? There was actually a plant that bloomed and then wilted in the same day.
Yeah,
Isn't that
that's odd.
bizarre? Yeah, that's very bizarre from where I'm sitting. And it had this blue, sort of almost tubular flower coming out of it that bloomed, and as soon as it bloomed, the same day, it actually
Died off. Okay.
it snapped away from the stem, and then sort of started to wilt, and it was removed.
Mm,
It's very strange, but certainly, I'm very happy with the state of the garden outside my window. If you've been looking at the DIY on the Discord channel, I'm sure, and did
oh
you see?
yeah, you're
Yeah, I
doing a
remember
really
you've
good job
commented
on
on it.
that.
The plants have gotten really tall, and
Yeah, they have.
I needed to make more pictures of it, but they're growing really well, and none of them
Good.
are in bloom yet. They won't be in bloom until around the end of September, and they'll only be in bloom for probably a few days before it starts to get too cold. But
Yeah.
I am a plant father. I'm very happy about that.
You know what you could do though?
What?
You could, once they bloom, pick them out of the dirt, put them in a pot, put them inside.
I could. You're right. I could.
Buy some light. Buy some light.
This is not a bad idea. I have
Some
thought
people
about
do that.
I've thought about what I would do with them, and that's certainly not a bad idea.
That way they bloom for a lot longer.
They would.
Maybe.
They're not perennials. Unfortunately, they're only annuals. So they would.
Oh, darn.
No, it's all right. They have their time to bloom, and they're very pretty, and I always
Mhm.
appreciate about them because they're not kind of. I I don't like the idea of plants that remain the same all the way throughout the year. That's why I don't like evergreens. That, and I just can't help but love the colors and changes that happen in seasonal trees.
Yeah,
And
so for sure.
I love that in flowers too. I love that they have their time and they show off and get to be beautiful for a little while, and then after that, they go dormant, and most of them just completely, uh, they either have their seeds shrivel and decompose, or some of them still drop seeds. I don't know how often that's done with most of those plants, but they're just done, and they rejoin nature, and you have to plant them again or buy new seeds. Luckily, seeds are real cheap. One of the cheapest
Oh
things out
yeah.
there are seeds, and I've never taken it upon myself to take care of another being like that, even if it's just a plant or a bunch of plants. And it's made me grow as a person to care for them and nurture them, go outside and water them almost every day. And, I've learned a lot from them. I just love to see the growth in them and to see where they can go next and what they're going to do next. Because it's kind of I don't know very well what their life cycle is like, and I'm learning every day.
Yep. For sure.
So the plants in the 2009 film Avatar on Pandora. Have you seen those?
I think I have, but it's been a while.
So they have very pretty plants in that movie. They're very glowing and they're very intensely large. It's because the planet has a lower gravity, which makes gigantism in its flora a thing. So you get giant
Yeah.
plants. And to talk on about this lightly, I think that bioluminescence is one of the coolest features of our natural ecology and the natural part of our planet. Glowing mushrooms, glowing moss, uh, sometimes crystals that are able to reflect light very precisely, even when it's a little bit dark. Things like that are really cool to me. And glowing fish too, which I don't know how many fish there are in the world that glow very lightly, but angelfish are one of them, or anglerfish. Sorry, the creepiest fish in the sea.
Ugh, yeah.
The
I was gonna
creepiest
say
fish,
there's the anglerfish that look really freaking creepy.
and jellyfish too.
And yeah.
Ugh, man, I hope I never encounter an anglerfish. I know there's no way they would be any threat to me, but they still look creepy as heck.
Yeah, they do. The only one out of the two that's venomous to you would be the whatever the other one that you mentioned. Duh.
Jellyfish and the man of war.
The jellyfish are more threatening.
Yeah, the man of war is like uh, it's sort of like a crazy offshoot of a jellyfish, if you could call it that. It's its own thing, and not only is it really venomous, but its tentacles can go quite a distance,
Okay.
and that's creepy to me. And they look so alien, like they're like these like weird bulbous blue transparent things floating in the water, and you're just like, what is that? And they just look that way. They just look very strange.
Mm-hmm.
Like
For
they're
sure.
they're one of the strangest looking animals on the planet, next to certain types of deep sea creatures, which also look very strange.
Yeah.
So magical sea plants too. I don't really know the most about sea plants, and there's not that many of them as far as lore goes in magic worlds. But I imagine that there are some really powerful magical plants under the sea. I like to think that glowing undersea plants are a thing, like glowing kelp or brine or coral. Coral. I like that word. But I imagine, and this is something I've been venturing into when playing Skyrim again, because I have a very modded playthrough of Skyrim that I'm doing by myself in my free time. And I've really been enjoying alchemy. And in alchemy, you get like a assortment of ingredients, and they have four properties that they can do to affect a potion. But by eating one, you learn one property, and you can learn more properties by experimenting, combining them,
Yep.
failing, and learning new stuff. And from what I've been playing, there's ways to improve upon like poisons and tinctures to the point where eventually I will be able to brew like a super serum and make myself into like a crazy super soldier because of it. I'm not there yet, but I'm looking forward to that. And that's also another thing. So from the movie The Black Panther, there is a thing called vibranium, and it is harvested by a very peculiar and specific flower that when you drink the pollen of the flower, I don't remember if it's called a vibranium flower, you get superpowers, which sounds pretty OP to me. And the superpowers are basically you're better in every way, and you're tougher and faster and stronger, and uh, you live a lot longer too, I think is one of them. But if you drink the vibranium plant, then you become the Black Panther in their culture, and you're sort of like a semi super soldier superhero. Now, I don't imagine, and we were talking about this yesterday as well, plants that can absorb compounds and alloys and are able to actually secrete through their leaves different kinds of metals. Certainly, I that was my favorite story from yesterday. I had a
Seems
lot
like
of,
a cool story.
yeah, I really think that that's the future of mining is a developing ways to literally grow like pennies on trees. I think that it's one of the most interesting and weird things I've heard in a while is a tree that you can harvest metal from. I think though, as our ability to understand the environment improves, there will be more things like that where it seems impossible. It seems impossible probably 10 years ago to be able to have, or maybe more like 30 years ago, to have extremely large scale vertical hydroponics, which, if you've seen those are awesome. That is also the way of the future of feeding our world is vertical hydroponics because you can store so many plants and so much food in each one of them. And something like that, I mean, I wouldn't have considered it 20 years ago. Of course, I was only 6, but I didn't even know what a hydroponics was. I'm sure if I had visited one, I'd be very happy and enthused to see all the work done there. I was always really
Right.
easily impressed by things. Do you have any plant stories from your life, Playful?
Not really.
Not really.
Nope.
Do you have a favorite plant then?
Nope.
Not a favorite flower?
No.
I think
To me, they're all kind of pretty.
I think so too. I definitely think that there are favorites I have among them, and some of them that I like are weeds. But I had this goldenrod plant in front of my window for a while, and it's a weed. But the insects were so just they were all in there. There were grasshoppers and bees and other kinds of flying insects and butterflies and stuff. They were just all in there. They loved it. I think if I decide to change things next summer, I'm going to plant goldenrod on the tier beneath the other flowers so I can get a little bit of both.
It's
So we'll talk about just a few more stuff. So in certain mythologies, there are things like barnacle trees that have a they have geese in them. Like you actually open up the tree and there's geese inside of it.
that wild,
That's very strange, isn't it?
weird. Yeah. Oh my god.
There's also the spaghetti tree. Have you heard of that?
The, no.
It is a hoax. It is a practical joke tree. People
No.
in the BBC were. There was a joke in which there was supposedly a tree which the stalks of the tree formed into very thin strands that very much resembled pasta. I love that one. Imagining you could just get spaghetti off of a tree.
It's kind of funny, but kind of weird at the same time.
It is. So there is also Biolante, which is a titanic monster plant that fought Godzilla. There's also, let's see, the Tesla trees, electrified trees from the planet Hyperion in the Hyperion Cantos. Interesting. And there's some Monty Python's trees as well, but they're all a little too they're all a little too crude for me to say the names of.
Here.
Oh, there's the talking tree in a the talking tree in Pocahontas. Do you remember that? Did you see that movie?
I don't think I have. I don't know.
In Pocahontas, the Mother Willow, or
Oh
the
yeah,
Grand
okay. I've
Willow.
seen that movie.
Yeah, that is strange. That is very strange. I think that I'd be very happy to have a giant tree as a friend, even if it spoke to me, right? It gave me wisdom. I
Yeah, that would be
think
cool.
I think though I would have a hard time getting over the fact that they're a tree. It might make me be like, well, you don't know what it's like to have like a lover squirrel. You're just a tree. I know it's very rude because, of course, maybe they've had their own thing going on for a while. But it does
Hmm.
feel like, what do they know? Do trees take on lovers? Do trees have problems with like connecting to somebody else or understanding somebody else? I don't think so. Unless that tree was a person at some point who became a tree, they don't know anything. Maybe that's my younger side talking though.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I the grandmother willow. Okay, it is true. It's called a grandmother willow. That's bizarre. Calling a tree a grandmother.
That definitely does sound weird, but that's just the way it is, apparently.
Also, there's dryads. Do you know what a dryad is?
Mm, nope.
So a dryad in lots of different things. They are in video games as also like half tree, half person. And they're sort of tree spirits, but they're human tree hybrids for the most part in fantasy. Which I think that's strange. Where like half I can understand like minotaurs, half person, half bull, or uh, centaurs, half person, half horse. But half person, half
Yeah.
tree, I start to lose connection to like what they want. Once again, I don't understand what their motivations are, besides just like
Yeah.
ensuring the growth of the forest. How do you motivate a giant tree? I don't know. You basically just leave it alone, and if they just want to be left alone, then there's not much of an adventure, unfortunately.
Nope.
All right, so I think we've had a nice little time here for a little while. I thank you very much for spending some time here with me, Playful. My voice is getting a little
Yeah,
tired,
fun.
so we'll call it. I'm glad you had fun though.
Alrighty, I will see you next Saturday.
All right,
House
and
talks.
I'll see you then as well. And thank you guys for showing up. As always, have a safe night. Get to sleep as easily as you can. And take care. We'll see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you, Sky. I'm glad you made it.